Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here with my review of Avengers Infinity War. Bit of a weird review of my channel given the content I usually do on here. I've gotten a lot of requests over the years to do, like, you know, superhero sci-fi movies or the DC TV or Marvel shows, but I just don't usually have room to fit them in the schedule. But I thought I'd dip my toe in the water with this, which is always a gross phrase to me. But, you know, this doesn't mean it'll be a super regular thing, but whenever I can fit in something like this for something I really want to talk about, I'll try to. Like right now, I was able to fit it in the schedule, and it's kind of one of those movies you just really want to talk about, and then I talk to the camera, my best friend. What a story, Mark. That was weird. Anyway, the first time into this video, you know how weird I am already. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. It should be in the title, in the description, but this is a spoiler video, so I don't want to hear complaining about spoilers. So, I really like this movie. I had a few little issues here and there, which I'll get to, but it was nothing, like, huge, like, opinion altering. I mostly really liked it. The first thing I wanted to talk about was how this was structured, because it was really interesting. It was very different from the other Avengers movies because we just have so many characters, and, you know, lots of people, including myself, were curious to see how well they would pull off having so many characters, and I think they did a really good job on it. And the way they did it was basically by segmenting it, and you had these different storylines segmented into each other, and eventually they would blend into different segments. Like, you know, you start with Cap and Doctor Strange and Hulk, which eventually morphs into Cap, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man, and then you have like Thor over here with the Guardians, and eventually the Guardian stuff goes over to Iron Man, and Thor's kind of making his hammer, and then you have like the on-the-ground stuff, which eventually leads to just kind of a large group of almost like the Civil War gang in Wakanda, and then, you know, Thor eventually intersects there. Like, the only one that never re-intersected in this movie was like Tony and Peter, like, meeting anybody from like the Civil War Wakanda camp. Like, after he took off into space, you know, he was only in that storyline. But that makes sense. Like, there might be people that complain about, like, that there wasn't certain interactions, but this is part 1 of 2, basically. So that's why I'm glad it wasn't rushed. I'm glad in general that this whole sort of culmination of the MCU is taking place over 2 Avengers movies, because they could very easily have done a rush job and altered the last 10 minutes to be a save, but they are keeping it going. And that was another major thing, was Thanos was a huge player in this. This was, obviously, but I mean, like, who would think that? But I mean, based on interviews, we already knew this too, but like, he was basically like a main character as well, even arguably kind of the main character. You know, you're kind of following his perspective a lot of the time, which was interesting, and I think he really worked. I liked the way he looked. I thought he was well played, well animated, and I liked his story too. I wouldn't say he's a sympathetic villain in the sense that I agree with what he's doing, but I think it's a much more interesting backstory. I like what they changed from what I know of the comics. I think sort of making him this this guy that sort of wanted to save his people, but he had this really extreme way and he failed, and it motivates him, and the whole thing kind of humanizes him a bit. Like, it's a crazy plan, but they did a good job of humanizing him with it, because you get the feeling that it's not like a total, like, oh, he just lost his mind and is crazy, but like, he genuinely believes what he's doing is right, and he cares about it. And like, the scenes with Gamora and like that whole connection was really well done. Both, like, I like how they gave us little flashbacks of when he first like adopted her, and then the scenes with him and her, and then when he threw her over for the Soul Stone, like, they actually had like tears, and I don't know, they did a really good job of making him more than just an evil big bad that's an obstacle. Like, he certainly was that, but I think they did a good job of making him more, and I thought he really worked, and I like that they were kind of ballsy enough to make him such a focus. Like, in a way, it's kind of risky just because, you know, it's the Avengers and you're spending so much time with this villain, and a lot of people might just want to see him be the big bad to be beaten. But on the other hand, he's been teased for so long that you kind of have to do something bigger with him other than just, yeah, this is the big bad we have to overcome. So I thought he was well done. My favorite part of the movie, the character interactions, I thought were great. It was great to see Tony and Doctor Strange bounce off of each other, and then Peter in the mix there was great as well. The stuff with the Guardians and Thor was probably some of my favorite stuff, especially like them all marveling over his looks, and Star-Lord being like jealous of him. I thought that was great. Like the line of, he said, what did Drax say? It was like an angel like mated with a pirate. It was really funny stuff. like the Guardians stuff felt the most Guardians, in the sense it felt like almost a mini Guardians movie within this movie, which I thought was great. Like, it felt really in line with all that. And I would love to have a future Guardians sequel have Thor along for the ride, because there was some really fun dynamics there, and Thor always calling Rocket a rabbit. Just some really fun stuff with that. One of my only complaints to get here, since I'm in that realm, is I felt like they spent too long on Thor making his hammer. I like that we got to see it, and it wasn't just like Thor being like, oh yeah, we're gonna go make the hammer, and then you don't follow him for a while, and then all of a sudden he has it. But I felt it could have been shortened a little bit, like, because after he was kind of just there with Rocket and Groot, and then the name of Peter Dinklage's character, who I forgot, who's in it briefly for the making scene. But it's just, I like that we had it, but I think it could have been trimmed a little bit. It just seemed like, it's like, oh, how was it made? Stormbreaker. Like, I didn't need to see it that long. But again, it wasn't something that I'm like, ugh, this movie is like so far down on my list because this took too long. It's just, with so much there is to do, I'm surprised they spent that much time on how he made it. But other than that, I pretty much loved everything with him in space. Going back to the structure a little bit, it was really interesting how it was structured, like I said, but I wish that sometimes they had cut back to people a little bit sooner. I'm kind of like of two minds on this, and I argue with myself, because I would rather have it the way it was than splicey, and it feels like we're bouncing all over the place. But sometimes, like early on in the film, we didn't see Tony and Peter for a while, and I'm like, where are they? Like, we've been away from that storyline for a long time. And then, like, in the last third, when Cap finally arrives at Wakanda, I forgot about that. Like, which is, because Cap's, like, my favorite, but it was weird, because, like, we then focused on the other two storylines in between. Cap, like, hinted we're going to Wakanda, and then we followed the other two storylines for so long that I'm like, oh yeah, Cap's in this. Like, it's just, I guess I just kind of got caught up in everything else, but I just a little balancing. This is more of a nitpick than anything, because I liked the way it was structured, but sometimes it felt like we were away from certain people for too long, to the point where you're wondering where they are, or you forgot about them. And that, like, my only main two complaints, honestly, were that and the spending too long on the hammer stuff. But everything else I thought was great. The action sequences were really awesome. There was a couple chill-worthy moments, like early on in the movie when the Black Order is attacking Viz and Wanda. Cap shows up with Falcon and Black Widow, and Cap catches like their spear, which is a scene from the trailer. We've seen him catch it, and he like comes out of the shadows. But the Avengers theme swells, and it just chills, and it was an awesome scene. And there's another similar scene in the fact that it plays the Avengers theme later when Thor arrives with Stormbreaker, and he's got Groot and Rocket, and the theme plays. It almost seemed like everyone was gonna get one of those moments. But there was some really, really cool action sequences in there. And none of them felt really forced. I mean, the last one is a classic battle against a bunch of creatures, but none of them felt like I could feel the machinery turning of, okay, they have to have this action sequence here. It felt great. And I thought there was a good balance of some like memorable, funny bits. Like I mentioned the rabbit thing. I think I referenced it, if I remember right. But Tony referred to the shushing Black Order guy as Squidward. I was kind of disappointed he got killed off so fast. He was actually my favorite. I really liked his presence. And there was some really good stuff with Drax and with Peter, and like him referencing old movies and them bringing that back. It was a really rewarding movie too, not with callbacks to previous jokes, twists on them, and it also felt very much like a sequel to all these films, you know, because we're following up on Civil War, the first Avengers film, the most recent Thor film, and it Black Panther, and it felt satisfying. It was just. I haven't felt like, I mean, I've been excited for the Marvel movies and enjoyed them, but I haven't felt a feeling like that since the first Avengers, just because it was such a huge accomplishment to see all these characters in the same movie, to see them interacting, because that was what I was looking forward to most. I wasn't like, oh man, I can't wait to see these guys fight. I was like, I can't wait to see these two interact, because they're really funny together, and I think that's going to be fun. And that's what I'm looking forward to for the next movie too. And there was some like fun mix of that, like when some of the Guardians first met like Iron Man and stuff, and Peter, and they fought, and we got little bits of like Peter finding out about some modern Earth stuff like the Avengers. I would love more stuff of that. Whether it's in a Avengers 4 or another Guardians movie, I just think there could be some funny reactions to some of the stuff that's that's happened since then. This is a really random thing, but I like how much more reasonable Rhodey seemed in this movie based on the Civil War stuff. I felt like he was kind of like extra like douchey in Civil War to Steve. Like he seemed so stern, like, no, this is the way, you're wrong. And like, I usually liked Rhodey. I'm like, why are you like that in Civil War? So he was much more balanced. But yeah, there was a lot going on, and there was a couple deaths that, just to circle back to that now, that could be perma, which is, I don't know why I said it like that, but Loki and Gamora. And I don't know how they would undo either of those, or if they will. I think if they do, if I had to pick one that I would think they are going to try to fix, it might be Gamora, because there's going to be a third Guardians, but then again, James Gunn likes to have consequences, but who knows how much involved he is with the decisions of that. I know that he wrote stuff for this movie, like some of the dialogue. Anyway, but those were the only two that I can think of that were like major, but like everyone else was like erased. And it was largely the new characters. They left, you know, the main Avengers intact, which I think is going to be a big thing. I think like the first quarter or half of the movie might be a chance to have, like, you know, the original recipe Avengers working together to fix this, and then we'll get the big onslaught of everybody at the end. I think that would kind of be neat too, just because this is like kind of the swan song of the original lineup too, so give them a moment to have that team. Again, this is all speculation at this point, but yeah. So I don't understand everyone freaking out over the erasure, because we knew it was going to happen. For a split second when they took Vision died too, of course. That is one I could see being permanent. But I could also see there being a thing, because Shuri was trying to work on a way to get the gem out and, you know, keep Vision alive. So I could see them do a workaround next movie where Shuri's like, oh yeah, I did some sort of crazy backup thing where we can revive him. So I could see them doing that. But, you know, Scarlet Witch ended the gem and ended him, but unfortunately Thanos had gotten the Time Stone, which Doctor Strange, or not, which they lost on purpose because Doctor Strange gave it to him, but it definitely seems like he has more of a plan with that. But anyway, you know, there was a split second, because I knew he had the time gem, but there was a split second I thought they might have that gem be destroyed, and 4 being about Thanos kind of angrily having to complete this mission without the full thing. But I was like, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't have all this build up, not only in this movie, but, you know, for the whole MCU, have all this build up for having him, like, not complete it. So I wasn't really surprised at that. If anything, I was more like expecting it to go the other way, just because, as you probably know, this was originally 3 and 4 were titled Infinity War Part 1 and 2. They eventually decided just to call this one Infinity War and gave the other one a TBD title. And then after that, there were several interviews where I read or listened to where they said, oh yeah, 3's got a satisfying ending. And I was worried, actually, that somewhere they'd course corrected and decided it was a better move to, while the movies would be connected, try to sort of make this one have some sort of forced ending and tie everything up a little bit neater. And I was actually worried, because I fully expected an ending like this back when it was Part 1, Part 2, and was hoping for it, because I think that's cool and kind of a neat way to do it. And it felt less like a question mark cliffhanger and more like a ... Because if you look at it from Thanos' perspective, he achieved his goal, boom, movie's done. And I think that it's neat to have the Avengers left in a place where they're defeated, and then you get to see them rise back up in the next movie. So I think that was great. Ballsy move that I'm glad they went through with. And it left the theater shocked, and it was great. Like I said, I was worried it was going to go the other way, because I thought that maybe they, for some reason, thought it would be more marketable to give this more of a complete ending. Like Thanos is temporarily like injured, or they destroyed the stone and he's like, you meddling kids, and then comes back in 4 and then does his plan. Like, I didn't expect something that sloppy, but I think you know what I mean. I thought they backpedaled, but they didn't. I'm curious what they're going to call it, probably Infinity Gauntlet or something. I wouldn't have minded keeping the Part 2, especially with inevitably the kind of the hype that's going to surround this sort of ... ending. I thought at the very ending title card, the will return was Thanos will return, which was kind of neat. But at the same time, I think that would have been a cool moment to reveal the title for 4. Like, the Avengers will return in, you know, Avengers Infinity Gauntlet or whatever. Or Avengers Infinity War Part 2, just kidding, we're going to title it that after all. That would have been a cool moment to do it, but that's just a personal thing. The after credit scene was like Nick Fury and Maria Hill driving. Poor Nick Fury, he can't even go out for a drive without ever, like, being shot up or erased. Like, he's just trying to, like, oh, I'm going to go on a Sunday drive. Damn Hydra, damn Thanos, just, but yeah, they're one of the ones that get erased. And just before he gets his little Captain Marvel beeper out, so it's a little teaser for that. there was no mid-credit scene. Like as of now, we're probably all used to, we get like a mid-credit and then a final credit. There was just straight up final credits. In fact, like the theater was like silent, like in shock after the Thanos like comes out of his little hut and then it's like boom, done. And then like, you know, it goes through the graphic-y credits and then it'll give the title and then you were waiting and it's like Infinity War and then it went to black and everyone was just, it was the most silent, but like you could feel everyone, almost hear everyone's thoughts like what the hell, because then it went right to the other credits. But yeah, it was a pretty neat teaser to tee up Captain Marvel, which makes sense because it's probably going to be more inherently connected to 4. I mean, we know Ant-Man's probably going to be in it, but you know, he didn't get, like, I just feel kind of bad because his movie's coming out next and he didn't get any sort of teaser, but it kind of makes sense because, like I said, Captain Marvel will be more involved. Not like, I'm arguing with myself now, but it was a cool little teaser. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Apparently, I just found this out today. It was probably known before, but I just found it out today that Ant-Man takes place before the events of this, so there's not going to be a bunch of erased people. But yeah, this very much so felt like a part 1. Like, most of my annoyed reactions were all the fake feels tweets that people make about the deaths, even though they're just basically temporary disappearings. And the people shocked that it ended on a cliffhanger-y way. Because of this, like, at one point, this was literally titled part 1, guys. This was kind of expected. And even just before the ending, like, as you go, there's all kinds of things that are kind of left hanging, you know, that you can tell is going to be part of one larger narrative. Like the stuff with Hulk. Hulk wouldn't come out the whole movie after the first part. I kept waiting for them to have some sort of reveal that he was literally scared of Thanos, which I think is the case, but then that's still in the air. Doctor Strange, you know, he said he found one outcome out of like 14-something million that they win, and this seems to be where he's going with it. So there's all kinds of little details like that you know, they're threads that you know aren't done yet. So as we're getting close to the end runtime, even before the cliffhanger, not cliffhanger, you kind of knew, like, you know, they're not going to have time to wrap all this up. Plus, they started the whole movie with Steve about to call Cap, he's about to call himself, I am Steve Rogers. That was a funny moment. Like, there was little funny moments like that when he met Groot. This is my friend, a tree. Anyway, sidetracked. But we start with Tony about to call Cap. That never happens. Or that never happens. Anyway, but so that's all has to resolve. But overall, this was a really great movie. I thought it was well shot, well acted, well structured. I love that it didn't try to wrap things up so great. It definitely leaves you in a place where it leaves you thinking a lot and leaves you excited for part 4 and all the stuff that it comes in between. If I had to give it a score right now, I think I would give it a 9. We'll see if that would raise or lower. I'm definitely going to see it again. It's one of those movies that you need to digest a little bit and then see again and let it digest, and one that benefits from multiple viewings in multiple directions. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. I just kind of wanted to get some thoughts out. It was a little bit crazy structure, but I didn't want to go shot by shot and go over it. This would be like a 30-minute video. But if you like this, just let me know and I'll try to do some more videos like this about the superhero movies and TV when I can fit it in on the channel. Anyway, until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It's Awesome Writer, signing out.